Hello there and welcome to the Watford versus Liverpool preview. Now, first of all, apologies for the lack of videos recently and possibly even for next week as well. It's just the way life's going at the moment. It's not really possible to make a great deal of videos, but honestly, there isn't actually, apart from match previews and match reviews and stuff like that, there isn't really a great deal to, talk about with Liverpool. Like, I can't even really make up subjects that I could talk about at length and get discussion points out of. People might want to talk about Timo Werner. Fair enough. People should know my views on that sort of stuff, and it's always like, if they're in the Liverpool shirt and things like that, that's cool, that's great, and it's going to happen. Fantastic. But talking about rumours and things like that, not really something that I, even if Werner has come out and said what he said as well about wanting to join Liverpool or anything like that, fine, that's cool, but it still doesn't mean it's going to get done. Things like the coronavirus apparently null and voiding this Premier League season. Yeah, that is a talking point that you could talk about as well, but not until, more cases and stuff like that, which hopefully doesn't happen. But if more cases and things like that start to happen, what happens if we do win our next 4 games and we get confirmed as Premier League winners early? Does that mean it gets taken away from us? I don't know. Now, let's move it straight on to Watford versus Liverpool. Now, Watford are sat in 19th in the Premier League. They are level on points with West Ham, who are in 18th on goal difference. And in their last 5 games, they've lost 3 and they've drawn 2. They're not in good form right now. When Nigel Pearson took over, they looked like they were going to start turning things around. His first game in charge was Liverpool at home against Watford. Now, we won 2-0, but it was a really tough game. If they'd taken their chances that they had, I remember the one with Sarr and Doucouré had taken one as well. They could easily have scored 2 goals if they were just that little bit more clinical. They made it a really tough match. They've gone out and they've beaten some good teams as well. They've also lost in poor fashion as well. When they've been up in games, they've sometimes just let leads slip. They just aren't able to see the games out that they need to. Luckily for them, because of how the relegation zone looks right now and that sort of, part of the table up to 14th and everything like that, the points are very tight. They're on 24 points. Newcastle in 14th are on 31 points. It's still all to play for. So it's not at all dead and buried for Watford whatsoever. Now, we come into this game, we know that we're going to be missing Jordan Henderson, we're going to be missing James Milner, and we're also going to be missing Xherdan Shaqiri. Now, apparently they're all some way on their way back. Milner is apparently in line and could be able to play against Chelsea in the FA Cup. That could certainly happen, and that would be a nice welcome return as well. So what does that mean for Liverpool in the midfield? Now, people are having this huge debate online, which I am absolutely not getting involved in whatsoever, and I totally mean that as well, because I don't think it's a debate that you can have. It's like when people debate about Sadio Mane and Mo Salah. Now they're doing it about Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita, primarily because Naby Keita didn't have the impact that he possibly should have against West Ham in the midfield. He's a different player to Oxlade-Chamberlain, and the very same as Naby Keita is a different. Oxlade-Chamberlain is a different player to Naby Keita. Oxlade-Chamberlain is way more aggressive. He's got a lot more pace. Will absolutely drive through brick walls to get things done, which is exactly what he did against West Ham. That's also why we have substitutions, so that when the first initial plan doesn't work, we go on, we use another one. That's fine. There's been plenty of times last season, even this season, when he's played Naby Keita, where he's done very well. He scored a good couple of goals last season that in crucial moments for us, in crucial ties. He's got good movement, he's got good passing. That's probably what he's got over Oxlade-Chamberlain, whereas Oxlade-Chamberlain has over Naby Keita probably a bit more physicality, more of a, I'm going to drive through this absolute brick wall, I'm going to do everything I can. He's got pace, he does have good, striking on both feet. He's got not bad passing, I just wouldn't say it's as good as an eye for a ball as Naby Keita. They're different players. They are different players. They offer different things. That's why we have substitutes. So I'm certainly not going to get on the bandwagon of we should sell Naby Keita, which is what some people are saying, and we need to go with Oxlade-Chamberlain from now until Henderson's back or whatever. Whichever way you want to go with it, they offer different things, and it depends on the needs of the game that's in front of us. Now, West Ham, we didn't know. Obviously West Ham are going to look at that game and think it's free hit, and it was for them. And the fact that they nearly walked out of there with points, they will have been probably grossly disappointed with at the end of the game. but they probably would have took a draw at the start of the game with both hands, and you could cut both their hands off at the end of the game. They would have took it. But we ground out the result. We didn't just grind it out, to be honest. We fought so hard in the end to get that result. Now, has Oxlade-Chamberlain done enough in that game to warrant a start? In my opinion, yes, he has. Because I think you could actually see a little bit of a difference. You could see Naby Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain starting together with Fabinho, and Gini Wijnaldum gets dropped. Could happen, because then it also means you've got to look at the FA Cup game that's coming up. Are they going to want to use Gini Wijnaldum against Chelsea? There might be a little bit, tiny little bit of rotation, tiny little bit, but we don't really do a great deal of rotation at all. So that could happen. We could see a defensive change. I very much doubt it, though. Do we see a Joe Gomez or a Van Dijk drop to the bench and a Matip or a Lovren? Not both of them at the same time. Definitely not. Not a fan of that one. Let's not do that. You know, obviously dropping Van Dijk for a game or giving him a rest or something like that is unheard of. It very rarely ever happens unless he's ever injured, which is, again, touch wood, very, very rare. But could we see a couple of changes that we might not expect? I'm not entirely sure. So I'm going to go for the lineup that I would actually, I think that we could see. Basically, it's the exact same lineup that we always put out, but I think that we're going to put Oxlade-Chamberlain, Fabinho, and Naby Keita in the midfield together. And I think that will actually, you've got the physical steel of Fabinho, the defensive awareness of Fabinho, and obviously his great, winning, his qualities of winning the ball back, spreading the passes like short and long. Then you've also got the drive and aggression of Oxlade-Chamberlain and everything that he brings there, a goal-scoring threat from midfield as well. You've got Naby Keita, who is very fluid in his movement, almost sometimes looks like that guy's walking on water. His dribbling is fantastic. His ability to play in between players, like when he's getting closed down and somehow find a way through them, dink the ball through. Fantastic qualities in the midfield. Could just offer something a little bit different having them all together, in my opinion. And then you save Gini Wijnaldum for the Chelsea game, or you at least have him on the bench. And then again, like we say against West Ham, we've got the options to come off the bench and make a difference. The front three stays exactly the same as long as there's no injuries. The back four and Alisson stay exactly the same as long as there's no injuries. And then the bench, you've got to look at the likes of, Minamino. People are obviously starting to do what they did with like Fabinho and stuff back in the day. Why isn't he playing games? This, that and the other. It's very difficult for Minamino to come in and break into this team in the position that he would want to play. Now, the one person that you could look at over the last, I don't want to say last couple of weeks, but possibly even then, that you could look at being replaced in the starting lineup could be Bobby Firmino, because he's actually frustrating quite a few people at the moment. Now, he was unfortunate with a header that he could have scored, I think, before the third goal went in against West Ham, where I think he tried to head it, but he'd actually headed it off the line. Which, it's one of those things, it happens. He's not turning into a Benteke. That's not happening. I've just literally watched Benteke miss an absolute sitter as well against Brighton. Anyway, he could do with a little bit of a... I'm not saying taking out the firing line, because obviously we've won our games. He'd probably be more under the firing line if we'd lost or drawn a game because of the standards that we've set this season for ourselves. You could see Minamino come into there. I don't know whether we would do that in a Premier League game. I'm just not sure. Maybe the changes will happen against Chelsea. A bit more, of the younger guys getting their faith repaid for getting us through the last round as well. Is that something that could happen? Maybe that's a discussion point for a video before the FA Cup game as well. But in my personal opinion, I think it'll be Bobby Firmino starts up front. Obviously, you'll have Minamino, Lallana and such like that on the bench. I don't know if we'll have like a Curtis Jones on the bench today, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think we can get the result. Whether we keep a clean sheet or not, I don't know. And I'm not entirely bothered whether we do keep a clean sheet. But it's a team that are fighting for their lives at the bottom of the table, and they've got an extremely realistic chance of avoiding relegation, especially with the teams that are around them. Aston Villa playing a cup final this weekend against City. Bournemouth, they're up and down at the moment. They can win games, they can lose games like that. Brighton, who knows? Newcastle could get sucked in as well. I don't actually know how they're 14th. I really don't. Obviously, West Ham are in there. Norwich got a really vital win against Leicester. So, I mean, the shape of the bottom three and the relegation zone could change in the next couple of weeks. I still think that we can get the job done against Watford. What we have to do is limit the chances that they get in and around the box. Because Sarr, if he starts, for Watford, is a very, very dangerous player. He's got good feet on, both his feet are very good to use from. His crosses are pretty decent. Decore seems to play a little bit further forward now. Less of a CDM. He drives forward, getting into the box, wants to create a threat. Obviously, Troy Deeney is always a threat as well. Dale Lefeu can be a very big threat as well. They do carry threats across that entire attacking line. We have to limit their chances as best as possible. That defence has to be absolutely the opposite of what they were against West Ham, especially that first half. They were It was the first time in my life, since we've had Van Dijk, that I actually thought, dude, you need to step it up. And the same with Gomez, same with Robertson, same with Trent. They all need to be defensively aware because these teams are fighting. Probably maybe a little bit harder than we are at the moment because we're so much clear at the top of the table, still 22 points clear. Maybe a little bit of complacency did set in against West Ham, and hopefully that has really rejigged the system to be like, you cannot switch off at any point, regardless of the opposition. And I hope that they do that against Watford today. I'm going for a 3-1 victory for Liverpool, but I seriously think that this is going to be a tough game. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do like it and subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you once again, and I'll catch you later.